I'm Jess Fox. I've spent my life chasing remarkable. In this series, I'm meeting the people doing the same. In business, in life, and in their communities. JCDecaux is the world's largest out-of-home advertising business and one of the leading operators in the Australian market. The market is consolidating fast and JCDecaux is investing hard in what comes next under co-CEO David Watkins. Grant Thornton had been advising APN Outdoor for years before the 2018 JCDecaux acquisition and has been alongside through some of the biggest chapters of the story since then. David, thank you for joining us. You came to Out of Home about a decade ago into an industry that has been reinventing itself ever since. What drew you to JCDecaux and what has kept you there?
I mean, I'm one of the few people in our industry that didn't start in the industry. So I'm a chartered accountant and I was working in mining at the time when I joined Out of Home.
Very different space.
Very different space. And what I actually looked for was an industry that was growing and had lots of opportunities. And someone said to me, if you can find an opportunity, you can just sort of grab onto the coattails and ride it, you'll get lots of, your career will go places. And so that's what I did. And I guess over 10 years, I've had, I think, 5 roles, and that was like 5 different jobs. So that's why I'm still there.
The variety, the growth, the opportunity you mentioned, it's a really dynamic media sector. Grant Thornton had been advising APN Outdoor before the 2018 acquisition by JCDecaux. So how did that relationship evolve through the deal and how has that grown, alongside your own role since?
Yeah, so I've worked with Grant Thornton for probably nearly the whole 10 years that I've been Out of Home. And there's been a lot of change. So when I joined, the business had just become a public company as a business called APN Outdoor. So there was all the growing up that you have when you become a public company. And Michael Catterall, who was our partner from Grant Thornton, was kind of in our corner. And that's what I think what good advisors do. They sit in your corner and they're part of your team. They're not just someone that you meet with every couple of months and they're not at the end of an email. They're actually making you look better. And so we've been through quite a lot as a business and a lot with Grant Thornton. And the business got bought out by JCDecaux in 2018, which was a pretty big transaction. It was a $1.2 billion transaction. At the same time, we were going through a tax audit and there was a lot of change. There was change in management. And so what we got out of our relationship with Grant Thornton is we had someone in our corner that just gave us stability but also confidence in terms of the transaction. And we were able to kind of navigate all those things that were happening at the same time to get the outcome that was the right one for the shareholders.
It sounds like that continuity and that collaboration through, navigating that change made a huge difference. And speaking of change and movement, there's been a lot of movement in the Australian out-of-home market lately. How do you read where the industry is heading?
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of movement in media generally. And I think what we're seeing in Out of Home is just part of that. The catalyst is that media is becoming less fragmented and that people or advertisers now buy across lots of different mediums. And it used to be, TV was where you put your money and then that cascaded into other formats. It's now a lot more balanced in terms of how people advertise and invest, and effective campaigns are across different mediums. And so what's happening in the out-of-home space is a TV company is buying an out-of-home company. That sort of goes to that theme of it being one media market. And then we have another out-of-home company being bought by private equity, which I think talks to the fundamentals of our industry being really strong. And they're seeing the opportunity and the growth, which is consistent with how we think about our business.
The financial shape that it has is unlike a lot of industries. There's long contracts, the costs that come years before revenue, physical infrastructure that's on every street corner. So what does it take from an advisor to actually understand a business like yours?
Yeah, so our business is a lot more complex than I think people think. So they would look at JCDecaux and they'd think we're an advertising business. The other thing they probably notice, they see little vans driving around that are cleaning bus shelters and toilet blocks. And so we're an operational business as well. So we have 150 field staff across Australia. But we're also a property business. So we either own the infrastructure, but we have leases, and we have thousands and thousands of leases, and every one of those contracts is bespoke. So that brings a whole lot of complexity. We put all the money in up front when we enter into a contract. So if we were to, we might talk about Western Sydney Airport because that's a contract I'm pretty excited about. But so we'll put a whole lot of money into that up front, and that will pay back over a 10 to 15 year time frame. So we make big bets up front, and because of that, the margin for error is actually quite small, because you make a bad decision, you've got 10 to 15 years to run that through. And what we've done with Grant Thornton is we bring them quite unique structures, and they're all quite bespoke, and we say, if we did this, what would happen? How would this work through with tax, accounting, etc.? And they often will then give us some alternatives, and that saves us quite a bit of money. And I think it makes us more competitive when we're bidding for contracts and the like. We're a contracts business. We've got to have the contract to be able to sell the advertising.
You've got to have the confidence in the advice that you're given, but it's that technical expertise that knows your industry as well as you do that makes the difference. And then I guess it's finding also the opportunities where to invest. You mentioned Western Sydney. Very excited about Western Sydney because it is home for me. It's also Australia's third largest economy, and JCDecaux has landed the 10-year contract at Western Sydney International. You're building a fully digital network from the ground up. What does this move say about where JCDecaux is heading?
I'm really proud of that win because I think it's one where we've taken a really long-term view, and it's quite unique for a big infrastructure project like Western Sydney Airport to come to market. So we've taken a view that over time, that's going to be a real economic hub for the city of Sydney. I mean, Western Sydney, as you said, is already the third biggest economy in Australia, but there's lots of reasons why an airport in Western Sydney will change the way that people move. I think 64% of people live within 45 minutes of that airport. So people will use it. It's 24/7. So if you want to have a dinner in Melbourne and get home that night, you can. We've taken a view that it's an audience that we want to align with, and that we think advertisers will want to invest in. And so, although it might take some time to get to their 7 million passengers they're forecasting, we're sort of on that journey. And because we take long-term views, it's a worthwhile investment for us.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you're building the future in this area, and there's so much growth and opportunity in Western Sydney. I'm looking forward to it. I mean, speaking of airports and billboards, I've actually got a bit of a connection there with JCDecaux, because my first advertising billboard was with Grant Thornton for a campaign called Reach for Remarkable, which, I feel like JCDecaux does a lot of reaching as well. Yeah. And I think it was a really amazing thing to see it in the airport and see that billboard, lighting up Sydney Domestic Airport in T3, and the whole Reach for Remarkable campaign was something I resonated with. And so on that note, I want to ask you, David, what does remarkable look like for you in your role?
Yeah, well, first, I'm really proud that you're proud of being on that billboard, because it was an amazing campaign. But remarkable for me, I think in today's society, everyone's looking for really quick wins. And remarkable for me is all those small things that you can do day to day with consistency that then turn in, and might not seem significant at the time, but turn into something that's really significant or remarkable. And so that's what when I talk about, if I was thinking about my business or that, for our business to be remarkable, we've got to do the small things every day right. And I think that's a sort of a mindset that I'd, bring to it.
I definitely relate to that. We talk about those, 1%ers, those things that you're doing every day consistently that add up to that big picture of success and what success looks like. David, thank you so much for your time today. It has been a pleasure chatting to you, and I look forward to seeing Reach for Remarkable on all the billboards.
So do I. Thanks very much.
You've just heard what Remarkable looks like in their world. What does it look like in yours? Thanks for coming along. There are more journeys to meet, and I'll see you at the next one.